I got a problem.
Just one?
Many problems. I have a problem with a certain way of thinking.
Sure.
Typical consultant, when they go to a sales conversation, talking to a prospective client, they're thinking about, and you, the listener, may be an exception to this, so I apologize, but I'm making a generalization. They're thinking about winning the deal. They're thinking about what the opportunity will do for them. They're thinking about how much money they are going to make. And then they win the deal and they celebrate, not opposed to the celebration, but they celebrate the win for themselves. They celebrate the money they're going to earn. And they feel like they've accomplished something by winning the deal and earning the revenue and eventually depositing the cash. I'm not against any of this, for the record. My problem is when you think about what actually happens in a consulting engagement. For you, it's a check and an opportunity to do some interesting work. And you'll start that project and eventually you'll end that project and you'll move on. And you'll do the next one and the next one and the next one. For the client, depending on what you do, it's the opportunity to embark on some real change and real transformation. That is far more consequential for them and their business or their team or their department and the lives of the people in question than the revenue was for you. You see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. And the thing that I find really kind of fascinating about it psychologically, just watching people go through this, is almost the way that a switch has to completely flip. And you have to make a 180-degree turn when you start with this mindset. Because if when you're closing the deal, it's all about you, right? I need this business. I'm going to close this deal. I'm going to win, right? We always often use that language when we're talking about sales. What I also know about consultants is once they are in the delivery phase of an engagement, it's barely about them at all, right? It's all about what can I do? How can I help? How do I, support? And so I find it so interesting to watch people kind of go through this flip-flop, because the place where most consultants, all good consultants, most consultants, right, are most kind of grounded and settled in who they are is when they are serving the other party. And so it's almost completely out of character to go down this path of the deal's about me. And so, yeah, I find it really curious. And of course, where we're going here is reframing the way you think about the selling of the thing as really just part of the entire experience, right? As opposed to a separate, unique thing that happened before you could start the real work of delivery. Makes a ton of difference, not just in how you feel about it, but how you show up.
Yeah. We've mentioned this before, and I'll reiterate. If you look at you look at the clients we've interviewed on this podcast, and obviously we have a lot more data beyond that from our client group. But if you look at the most successful consulting businesses, some of whom we've highlighted on this podcast, and we have countless other examples of really successful consulting businesses, what you will find is the founder and the leadership team are very much focused on the contribution and the impact and the value they are bringing to the marketplace. Like they're genuinely passionate about what they're contributing to their client organizations and the change and the transformation they're sparking. I'm not saying they're not excited about the money they're making. Don't get me wrong. Like that's fine. That's human. But that's not what gets them out of bed. And they make great money, by the way, right? What gets them out of bed is change, impact, the opportunity to serve their clients at the highest possible level which happens to be an incredibly lucrative passion to have
Sure.
in the right business model. But, I just don't think we talk about that enough. I know it's a conversation we have internally on our enrollment team. I recall talking to somebody on our enrollment team, and my message to him was, you can't want it more than the client wants it.
Mhm.
Like, if we're trying to do a deal with somebody and we feel like we want it for them more than they want it for themselves, that's a bad deal. Like, even if you happen to enroll them or they work with you or you close the deal, how invested are they in the process, right? Like, we want to work with clients who want to work with us more than we want to work with them, frankly. Like, we want them to have more skin in the game, more at stake, because they do ultimately. We come in and we do a service, and we've done it over 1,000 times before, and we'll do it 1,000 times more. But each one of those, clients is a business and a life and a future and a career for whom the engagement with us had higher stakes than our engagement with them. And I wish people would think more about that in their business.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wonder as well if there's something here that speaks to the difference between selling a complex service, which is what we're talking about, right? And just selling a thing. And those are often two very different experiences, both as the seller and as the buyer, right? If I want to buy a new chair, right? Beautiful new chair. I go, I sit in the chair, I test the chair, I get excited about the chair, I take the chair home, it's over. Yes, I continue to enjoy the chair, hopefully for years to come. But that's very different than having someone buy into an experience, right? Buy into experience where they are going to be spending not just their money, but their time, their energy. Buy into experience where they're going to build a relationship with you and or your team, and recognizing that they are doing that at the expense of something else, right? Saying yes to this means saying no to something else. It means not spending money somewhere else. It means not spending time somewhere else. It means not putting focus somewhere else. And if you can understand that and really think through that, not just in a kind of loose way, the way we're talking about it now, but for each client, then you'll get to a place where you can make that shift when you're having those sales conversations. But also, honestly, you're going to be a better provider, right? You're going to be a better consultant because you're going to understand the real weight that comes behind what just looked like, a check that they signed and sent to you.
Yeah. I think one of the issues here is consultants, I think, fail to look at or underestimate the consequences of their work for the client. If you just look at our business as an example, right? The first order consequence of working with us is more opportunity, more revenue, which is good. That's great. But if we stop there, it lacks some emotion, right? It lacks some meaning. It's more money, more opportunity. That's fantastic. What's the second degree consequence of that? More confidence, increased feeling of security, increased degree of self-actualization, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. What's the third degree consequence of that? Perhaps hiring, right? Creating employment, becoming a more, significant contributor to the economy by creating jobs and paying taxes. What's the consequence of that on your family life? If you go from being a struggling business owner to a successful business owner, how do you now show up at home with, your partner, spouse, children, siblings, friends, community, the donations you make to your favorite charity or to your church or to your mosque or synagogue? Like, you could go, and I encourage you to do this, by the way. Like, don't just limit your impact to that first degree consequence. Look how much more interesting and meaningful things got when I went beyond we help clients make more money. And to be fair, I don't know that I realized that in the beginning. It wasn't until we started having more interesting conversations in a testimonial context around, what are you getting out of this? And how is this making you feel? And how is it changing your life? That this started to come out. And I probably didn't really appreciate it until then. But my contention to you, the listener, is if you go beyond just that, first order consequence, which is the very specific result of the thing that you deliver, there's some really compelling and meaningful impact and change and transformations that are taking place in the lives of the people that you serve that I don't think you should be sleeping on.
Absolutely. Question for you, because you spend considerable time having these conversations. So it's one thing for us to say, here are some ways to think about it differently. Tell me, we often talk about like acting your way into thinking differently. Tell me how this plays out in the sales conversations that you're having.
For me?
Yeah.
Personally? Our sales conversations, I don't think it's even fair to call them sales conversations. It's probably a bit of a misnomer, that label. They're enrollment conversations. We don't sell to people. We interview people to see if they qualify for the experience. And so as part of that, some of the questions that myself and the team ask are, what are you looking to achieve? Where are you stuck? Why do you feel like our solutions are a good fit for you? Why is now the right time for you to engage with us? What is it in particular about our solution that's compelled you to get to this step in the process? Where do you specifically feel like you need the most help? Like, it's these kinds of things. Nowhere in our process are you going to hear us go, well, we are the premier training organization for the blah, blah, blah. And that's probably true, but not the point, right? We're very clear on what we do and who we do it for. And then the enrollment process is more about, are you a fit for this? Like, are you the right person to take full advantage of this transformation? And yeah, in fairness, that's 1,000 clients later and a few hundred published case studies later. But it was fundamentally a very similar conversation in the early days. And the reason that works really well, by the way, folks, is clients don't buy because you're good, or because you have a great solution, or because you're the leading premier whatever. Clients buy because they believe they're going to be materially better off working with you. And the more you're focused on that part of the conversation, the more likely they are to pull the trigger.